a medical school professor heads to a remote hotel in Aspen to spend the weekend with her lover. However, someone knows their secret and uses the information to force the couple to do unspeakable acts in order to survive. Holly, a medical school professor, drives through the isolated roads of the Colorado mountains. She answers the call from her husband Russell, who complains about how she seemingly attends a hospital conference every other week. He tells her to be careful about overspeeding on the road and to watch out for the Colorado Springs cops. She asks about their daughter Chelsea, and the man says she isn't home yet, so Holly appeases her husband by saying that she might be out with friends and to not worry about their daughter all the time. He suggests they take a couple's trip next weekend, but she anticipates that she'll be tired from the trip and might choose to stay home then. Before she ends the call, Russell asks her if she packed her sleep medication, and she affirms. After the call, a sign by the side of the road reads Aspen, meaning the woman isn't actually headed to Colorado Springs. Soon, she arrives at a hotel, where the concierge refers to her as Mrs. Allen, and hands her a room key to room 512, or the Black Diamond Suite. Eventually, bellhop Dave helps the woman with her luggage and accompanies her to the room. In the elevator, the man asks her if she and her husband are celebrating a special occasion, but she says they're only there for a weekend getaway. Dave opens up and shares that he and his wife are just about to celebrate their second anniversary in a month, and asks Holly for any advice on how to make a marriage last. She gives some generic relationship advice about always being present whenever he and his wife are together, and to always give her flowers. In the suite, the professor spots an envelope on the table and reads the card inside. The message tells her to take a bath and open the envelope by the bathroom sink. After the bellhop takes her luggage to the bedroom, she hands him his tip, and the grateful man promptly leaves. Then she heads out to the balcony to admire the beautiful snowy forest view. In the bathroom, she finds the envelope with the message telling her to go to bed, put on a blindfold, and consider wearing the surprise waiting for her in the closet. The message ends with the writer informing her that he'll knock on the door 3 times once she's ready. Moments later, the woman enjoys a glass of wine while in the bath. She receives a call from Russell, but she chooses to ignore it. After the bath, she finds a red box in the closet, takes it over to the bed, and opens it. Inside, she finds lingerie and handcuffs, bemusing her. So she puts on the lingerie and turns the music up. She then places the key on the bedside table, cuffs herself to the headboard, and lowers the blindfold over her eyes. Minutes later, Holly hears 3 knocks on the door and calls out to Everett, but the person who walks in doesn't answer. Suddenly, a man sits on the bed and begins caressing the woman's body. He then proceeds to pleasure her, before making love to her. However, the man pushes her head down forcefully and continues to make love to the woman despite her pleas for him to stop. Eventually, he stops and leaves the sobbing woman still tethered to the headboard. The man, her husband, Russell, heads to the living area and approaches a tied-up and gagged Everett. The husband orders the frightened man to lie and say what he must to make sure he and Holly remain inside the room, lest he harm the man's wife, Lydia. Russell unties his hands and tells him to stay put until he's left the room. Before the evil man departs, he tells Everett to enjoy his wife. Confused and scared, Everett enters the bedroom and unlocks the handcuffs. Enraged, Holly pushes the man away and berates him for taking advantage of her. Aware that he can't tell her the truth about who the assailant was, he doesn't know how to explain what happened. When the professor is adamant about leaving, Everett receives a call from Russell, who reminds him about his order to keep Holly inside. Suddenly, the woman passes to try and leave the room, but her lover intercepts, apologizes profusely, and begs her to stay. Though conflicted and still greatly offended about what she thought he did, Holly turns back around and returns to the bedroom. The man continues the call, where the husband warns him that if the police are called, or if the professor leaves, he'll hurt Lydia. He adds that he knows they've been having an affair for nearly 6 months, and only recently found out after the bank called him regarding large changes. Everett then hears Lydia's muffled voice through the phone begging him for help. After the call, the man speaks to his lover and tries to explain that he took advantage of her at the end of their lovemaking because he remembered that she mentioned how she liked it rough the last times they did it. He apologizes again and begs that she stay and that they start their romantic getaway over. Their conversation is interrupted when she receives a call from Russell and when someone knocks on the door. While Everett sees who it is, the woman answers the call. Her husband asks where she is, and she lies and says she's still in the hospital. The man opens the door for hotel security, who says he's there about a noise complaint, but Everett assures him that everything's fine and they'll keep it down. Meanwhile, on the call, Russell reveals that he knows she's not in Colorado Springs and that she's with Everett Allen, a married man who has a child. Meanwhile, Everett answers another knock on the door. Surprised, Holly enters the bedroom to continue the call and acts as if she doesn't know what he's talking about. She mentions that Everett's just her student, but Russell says he knows they've been having an affair. The husband claims that her lover is a dangerous man and that his other lovers have gone missing, implying that he might have murdered them. He advises her to find any way to escape the suite. Eventually, Everett coaxes Holly to come out of the bedroom for a surprise in the living area. The suspicious woman sees a massage table set up and slowly walks toward it. Unbeknownst to her, her lover receives a text message from Russell, who tells him to take the woman's phone. So, Everett deftly takes the woman's belongings and instructs her to lay on the table so he can give her a massage. Though apprehensive, Holly follows his instructions, believing her husband's words about Everett. During the tense massage, Everett asks Holly what her husband does for a living, despite the rule of never bringing up their spouses while they're together. However, the man insists he has the right to know in case he has to fend for his life if Russell's a boxer or a cop. She doesn't answer his question and asserts that Russell only called to check on her before she goes to bed. She then asks what activities he has planned for them, so he says they'll mostly be staying inside the entire trip. Uncomfortable, Holly says she'd like to take a shower, but as she moves to pick up her things, including her phone, Everett stops her and tells her to leave it. The woman gives a strange smile and heads to the bathroom, and the man keeps the phone on the table. Moments later, he opens the door and steps into the hallway. Meanwhile, the woman quietly steps onto the balcony, searching for a way out. In the hallway, Everett receives a message, and to his horror, sees a picture of his blindfolded wife with a knife to her throat. He scrambles back inside the room and texts back that he promises he won't leave. The number says that he should check the balcony. On the balcony, the professor tries and calls out for help from the neighbors, but no one answers. Concurrently, Everett realizes the bedroom door is locked, so he slams his body on it to force it open. Inside, he finds his lover by the sink, and the woman pretends she couldn't hear him. Soon, they step into the shower together, and he, once again, asks her what her husband does for a living. Eventually, the woman reveals that Russell used to work in police surveillance, but insists that he mostly does office work now. Irate, Everett can't believe she never told him her husband's job and how she never realized how risky it is, considering Russell's line of work. When he hears a noise, he steps out of the shower, but orders her to stay put. In the living area, he finds a canister of sedative medication and sees that Holly's phone is gone. He then receives a message from Russell that each time Holly makes a false move, Lydia will lose a finger. The tormentor also suggests he use the medication on the woman, but to make sure he doesn't give her too much. Seconds later, Holly calls for him, but the preoccupied man tells her to leave him alone, prompting her to return to the bedroom. Everett searches the suite for cameras of microphones Russell might have hidden to spy on them. In the bedroom, Holly finds her sleep medication in her bag. Minutes later, she places her hair up in a bun using a hair needle. Suddenly, her lover arrives to ask her to join him for a drink on the balcony. There, the man wraps a blanket over her shoulders. When she sees the red wine, she politely asks if she can have white instead. Concerned she might place something in his drink, he tries to take his glass with him, but the woman casually instructs him to leave it on the table. So, while she places a capsule's worth of sedative medications into his drink, he does the same to her white wine in the kitchen. In the balcony, she accidentally knocks over her glass, alerting the man, who quickly returns. She reasons that she knocked it over when she moved her blanket, so he sweeps the glass away with his shoe and hands her the white wine. They then take apprehensive sips of their respective drinks. Suddenly, they hear a knock on the door, so he takes a knife from the kitchen drawer before answering. Everett opens the door for Dave, the bellhop, who's there to deliver their dinner. After Dave places the two cloche-covered plates on the table, Everett realizes he has no cash on him for a tip, so Holly walks away to grab the money from her purse and hands it to the bellhop. Moments later, they sit on opposite ends of the table for the meal. During the awkward dinner, they reminisce about how their affair started, but the woman takes offense to his claim that she was the forward one. She says he was failing her class, and when she suggested helping him out, he agreed enthusiastically. He asks whether she enjoyed their time together, so she admits that the relationship provided much-needed exhilaration in its unpredictability. Suddenly, they hear a knock on the door. Everett receives a picture on his phone of the tip Holly gave Dave. On the bell, she wrote a distress message about how he's dangerous and to call the authorities. Russell says poor Lydia had to pay for his wife's bold move. When the man opens the door, all he finds is another cloche, and when he lifts it up, shockingly finds Lydia's ring finger on the plate. He takes it inside the room, places it on the counter, and claims it's only an empty plate. He takes a seat on the couch, and Holly sits on his lap. She kisses him to get his guard down, then takes the hair needle and places it against his throat, demanding to know everything that's going on. Everett tells her to lean in as if to kiss him, but when she doesn't cooperate, he forces her onto her back on the couch, and says the entire room is bugged and that Russell set everything up to punish them for the affair. However, before they can discuss any further, the sedatives they secretly gave each other start taking effect at the same time. Soon, the lovers lose consciousness on the floor. Later, Holly wakes up handcuffed to a railing. In the bedroom, Everett regains consciousness while holding an empty syringe. He then sees something in the room that shocks him. The man heads to the living room area to speak to Holly, who tells him that she knows she isn't the first woman he's tormented, and that Russell's on his way with the authorities. However, Everett returns to the bedroom, where the husband is tied to a wheelchair, his mouth taped shut. He takes the tape off the man's mouth, but realizes Russell's tongue's been cut off. He asks the man to tell him what's happening, but the husband can neither speak nor write anything down due to the medication in the syringe he claims was injected in him. Everett returns to Holly, who begs him to surrender, still believing that her husband's on his way to save her. So the man unlocks her cuffs and takes her to the bedroom. Distressed, the woman runs to her husband, and Everett locks her cuff onto the wheelchair. Before he passes away, Russell tries to tell her something, but she can't understand him. The man shows her the syringe and says he doesn't know what was inside it. Suddenly, Holly finds a crumpled piece of paper inside her husband's vest and secretly takes it. Everett receives the call and he places it on speakerphone. A disguised voice tells them that only one of them can leave in the morning, and they'll have to figure out who it'll be. If they both survive, or if they try to escape or contact the police, the mystery person swears they'll kill their families. Soon, the man leaves the room and Holly opens up the paper and sees the word safe written on it. The man returns wielding a knife, confusedly considering ending Holly's life for his daughter's sake. The woman begs him not to do it, and to consider her daughter Chelsea's life as well. Suddenly, they hear security knocking, so he leaves the room. Before answering the door, he leaves the knife on the table. He then speaks to two security officers who say they received another noise complaint. When he promises they'll keep it down, the men ask him about the bellhop, who they claim has gone missing, and whose last task was delivering their dinner. Meanwhile, Holly opens the safe using their first date as the code and finds a memory card inside. The security officers ask Everett if they can speak to his wife, so he excuses himself to fetch her. Everett returns to the room to unlock her cuffs and ask her to lie to security for the sake of their families. By the door, the men inform Holly about Dave's disappearance, so the woman recounts how the bellhop simply set up their table and that he left after they tipped him. She then excuses herself while the men continue speaking with Everett, whom they advise to give them a call if he has any information. After the security officers leave, Everett sees Holly holding the knife he left on the table and asks her if they can talk. When he tries to explain that he isn't behind everything that's happened, she refuses to believe him. So he tells her to check the cloche by the sink, where she'll find Lydia's ring finger because he failed to follow their tormentor's rules. She lifts the cloche and, to her horror, finds the severed finger. However, the woman reminds him that had security not arrived, he was about to kill her. He explains that he has a family to protect, but she counters that he already failed when he started having the affair. When he points out that she isn't faultless either, she says he killed her husband and kept her cuffed when she could have saved him. Suddenly, the man stands up and reveals that he was tied up earlier and had to watch Russell take advantage of her. So she asks him who could be behind everything, and he insists he doesn't know. While he continues slowly approaching the woman, he asks her if she ever loved him. She doesn't give him an answer, and as he comes closer, promises that he would have never hurt her earlier because he loves her. However, when he moves to embrace the woman, the knife she's holding plunges into his stomach. She tells him not to take the blade out, but he pulls it from his body and he begins to bleed out. She places a blanket over him and he lays his head on her knee. He asks her to forgive him and she accepts the dying man's request. Seconds later, she hears his phone ringing and answers it. The disguised voice orders her to destroy the phone by placing it in the microwave. The mystery person says that she can either walk out of the room to her freedom, or she can take the room 513 key from her husband's pocket and meet the person responsible for everything. Eventually, Holly returns to the bedroom, hugs her dead husband, and takes the room key. She then places the phone in the microwave to destroy it. The professor heads out into the hallway, ready to board the elevator. However, she changes her mind and heads to room 513. Inside, she finds a monitor displaying camera feeds to their suite. In the bathroom, she finds bloody surgical tools on the sink, and the tied-up and blindfolded Lydia in the shower. After she's untied, the terrified woman asks Holly where Everett is, but the professor can't answer her question and promises she'll call the police. So she returns to the computer and is about to call the police on the landline. However, she remembers the memory card and inserts it into the computer to view its contents. On it is a single video file, and when she presses play, she sees Russell installing a security camera and Lydia popping up beside him. Suddenly, the woman appears behind Holly and says getting Russell on board with the revenge plan was easy, but accepts that the man never fully trusted her. She admits to killing Everett's two previous lovers, but claims her husband was obsessed with Holly. On the monitor, the professor sees the two security officers enter room 512. As she backs away from Lydia, she stumbles, drops the memory card, and shockingly finds Dave's lifeless body on the floor. The deranged woman believes she'll get away scot-free, explaining that all objects that'll incriminate Holly have her or Everett's fingerprints on them. Then, the women fight over the memory card, but Lydia grabs it and rushes to the bathroom to flush it down the toilet. Holly grabs her by the hair and slams her head onto the mirror. The woman falls to the floor, but she continues tormenting the professor by pointing out that Russell paid for her sins, and her daughter will too. Enraged, Holly takes a vase and slams it onto Lydia's head, ending her life. Seconds later, the security officers break into the room and order Holly to surrender. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out.